guys, it's Kira and welcome back to another reading vlog. The book that I'm going to be picking up in today's vlog is one that I am super excited to read. It was a new release last year and one that got so much hype and attention and love, and of course, being me, I didn't read it when it was new out and when everyone was talking about it because I'm just so bad at keeping up with hypes, but I did manage to borrow a copy quite a few months ago now from my friend Em. Her channel is A Little Writer Em, and Em loved this book, so I borrowed it from her ages ago, I think in November, basically before the second lockdown, so it's been on my shelves for quite a while and I haven't gotten around to it. So the book that I'm talking about is of course The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue by V E Schwab. I actually have read the first chapter of this book. I read this one in a try a chapter book tag, but I ended up reading a different book as a result of that book tag. So I still need to read The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue, and it sounds really interesting and I really want to love it because I have read a couple of things now by V E Schwab and I have enjoyed them, but they haven't made the biggest impression on me. Like, I know her works really impact some people and people absolutely love them, but I know that this one has appealed to so many people who wouldn't otherwise have considered themselves like massive fans of her other works. So with that in mind, I'm very excited to give it a read, see what it's all about, and hopefully find a new favourite. So without further ado, let's get reading. Jay just got home from work and look what he brought. It's friggin' donuts. That was such a horrible noise. I'm so sorry to your ears, but literally so excited. I feel like it's been so long since I've had vegan donuts like that are this good. This is a place in York. Jay now works in York, which is why he was able to go on his lunch break, but I've been working from home and on furlough, so I've not been in York, where I also work, for quite a few months now, and I've been so jealous of this, especially because Em, who also lives in York, has shown some of these on her Instagram recently and actually just specifically sent me pictures of donuts, which made me extremely jealous. But Jay has come through with the donuts. So these two are not vegan, these are cream egg ones, and those are for Jay and his sister. But then these two are vegan. There is a Biscoff one and a jam and cream one, obviously vegan cream, and oh my god, I can't wait because tonight is the first episode of the Great British Bake Off Celebrity Special, which is like a charity version, and I think it goes on for like 4 weeks, but the first episode is on tonight and I cannot wait to eat a donut whilst watching Bake Off because honestly, it just doesn't get any better than that. Of days have passed and I can also confirm that those donuts were everything that I wanted them to be. I mean, Biscoff donut, you can never go wrong with a Biscoff donut, and honestly it really did bring a lot of joy to my life because I just love donuts so much. But it has been a couple of days and I feel like I haven't been reading as much as I typically would like to because, as you might be able to tell from the boxes behind me, it's a lot of chaotic energy going on right now because Jay and I are just a couple of days away from moving, which means that we've been spending a lot of time packing, organising, ordering new things and basically just getting everything sorted. So behind me are the boxes. These boxes, there's 4 boxes completely full with the books that we are keeping. Then on the shelves are the books that we've decided not to keep. So I've actually got a video that's going live today, which is Saturday the 13th of March, which essentially is every single book on our shelves and me unhauling like over 100 books, and then I'm going to pop some of those on Instagram to see if anyone wants to check them out. So if you're interested and you're watching this vlog not too far into the future, then you can head over to my Instagram at @Kira'sCorner_ to find out more about those books, and of course watch the vlog of this whole process, because it's the longest video that's ever gone up on this channel, but I think probably one of my favourites because it was so much fun to go through the shelves, Jay and I together, and just basically decide what to keep and what to get rid of. So we've packed up all of our books. In front of me I'm looking at like 4 huge suitcases full of clothes, and we've also gotten rid of or decided on a lot of clothes to donate to charity that we don't want to keep. So essentially I've been very busy the last few days, but I have slowly but surely been reading The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue. I'm definitely enjoying this book a lot so far, and I am on page 117, and this book has a total of basically 540 pages. So only just scratching the surface. I feel like I always say that when I'm reading vlogs. I feel like I'm scratching the surface and then suddenly a book is like almost over. So right now I feel like I'm just getting into the story, but what I am loving about this book so far is, first of all, the really intriguing premise. We have this main character, Addie La Rue, who has kind of like had a bit of a Faustian situation where she has sold her soul to the devil as such, or to some kind of powerful being who has essentially, I guess, bargained with her in exchange for immortality and for freedom. She basically has this plague upon her where no one can know her name, no one will remember her, and so she has all this freedom, immortality, the ability to travel and do whatever she wants, and yet no one can ever have a meaningful relationship with her because she just becomes like this forgotten being that no one can really access. That's a really intriguing premise. Finding out a bit more about how that came to be and multiple different timelines giving you an insight into how this has impacted Addie's life is really interesting, and the book is coming together in quite an eclectic but really interesting way. So the premise is obviously really intriguing, and then aside from that, the writing style I'm finding just really incredible. It's a very haunting way to tell this story because it does just feel almost as though you can almost sense the pain and just the emptiness that Addie's life has come to represent in the fact that she can't ever really truly connect with anyone, and yet the original time when she sold her soul essentially was in the 1700s, and then part of the book is in 2014. So you see that she's lasted in this weird kind of shell of a life for centuries now, and so there's almost like this hint of hope that maybe something will change, which again adds to that haunting sadness, that kind of like a melancholy that overrides the entire narrative. And I also love the way that nature is being explored in this book. There are a couple of quotes that I just absolutely loved. The first one is on page 14, and it says, "March is such a fickle month. It is the seam between winter and spring. Those seams suggest an even hem, and March is even more like a rough line of stitches, sewn by an unsteady hand, swinging wildly between January gusts and June greens. You don't know what you'll find until you step outside." Now that's such a wonderful line in general, but so apt considering that it is currently March and we have absolutely been experiencing that fickleness of the month, and it literally just today has been sunny, windy, hailstones, rain, freezing cold, and then kind of warm all in one day. And so that just felt like a quote that spoke to me, and I'm glad to be reading this in the month that it's actually referring to because I just feel like it's so accurate. And then the other quote that I noticed was on page 26, which is another really beautiful, like nature-y quote. And this one is a much shorter quote, but really beautiful, and it simply says, "Blink and the years fall away like leaves." And I just think that Victoria Schwab, or V E Schwab, is doing a really great job of using nature as a way to captivate the reader in the sense of using imagery that you can relate to. It's something that's like tangible and something you can really imagine, but then it also creates that haunting atmosphere that really underpins the entire narrative. So I'm really enjoying this book. It's written in such a beautiful way, and although I've been very busy and haven't necessarily done as much reading as I might like to, this has been a wonderful book to return to in between packing sessions. So I'm going to continue on with this evening. It is currently, like I said, Saturday, and we've done quite a bit of packing already today, which means I think I'm going to give myself the rest of the evening off to focus on reading and relaxing.
I met an old man. I said, tell me your story. He took out a notepad and wrote something for me. Then he kept walking on down the road, and I watched him disappear like smoke. And I thought I'd just seen a ghost. Then I looked down at what he wrote. It said, son, when you grow up you'll be fine. I know you've got questions on your mind. Life is gonna happen one way or the other, whether you like it or not. Stop looking for the answers and you'll find what you've got. I met a young man, searching for glory. I took out a notepad and wrote in my story. Then I kept walking on down the road. When your time is up, it's time to go. I pray he reads what's on the note and takes to heart what I wrote. I said, son, when you grow up you'll be fine. I know you've got questions on your mind.
Alright guys, as you might be able to tell, I'm in a new location, which happens to be the kitchen of our new house, which is very exciting and honestly my favourite room in the whole house because I love food, love tea, and basically everything that I could want from a room exists in this kitchen, so having a great time. We haven't officially moved in fully yet, but we've been going back and forth all week, and today we were here to get a few deliveries, and now we're just staying for the afternoon, and Jay, as you might be able to hear in the background, is currently got his DIY hat on and he's putting together a few pieces of furniture. So I don't really have any major jobs to do this afternoon except for a little bit of organising. So I've made myself a cup of tea. Also have just been to Pret to get one of their vegan very croissants, and I'm planning to just do a little bit of reading of The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue. I have been reading this book throughout the week, obviously a little bit slower than I would have liked, but I've been reading it in between trips back and forth to the house. I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm starting to become a little bit nervous as I'm reading it because I honestly just don't know what direction it's going to go in. I'm now at about page 200, I think, so I've still got about half-ish of the book left to go. And it's starting to get to a point where things are happening that kind of go against the curse that Addie has, which is that no one can ever say her name and no one can remember her. So there's kind of a hint that someone might be able to break this curse, but based on the other reviews I've heard from people basically saying that this is a book where you always end up crying at the end of it, I'm really nervous to know exactly what direction it's going to go in. And there was another interesting quote, I think from page 126, which essentially said that like you can get used to anything with time, but Addie doesn't think that she can ever get used to this way of living that means that no one will ever remember her. And again, it just feels very haunting, and there's just this air of melancholy going through this entire book. So got my tea, got my book, got my croissant, and I'm going to do a little bit of reading while Jay does all of the hard work this afternoon. Good morning guys, it is now Friday and we're back at the old house. Today is probably going to be the last day that we're back here because tomorrow morning Jay's dad is helping us move the last few bigger bits that we haven't been able to take in our own cars. So last day at this house, which is kind of exciting because then we'll be fully moved in tomorrow and I won't have to drive back and forth with all kinds of stuff all week, and I might actually be able to, you know, get back into some kind of routine. But I did do some reading of The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue yesterday in between helping Jay with putting together some furniture, and I am now on page 337. So the plan of action today is essentially just to chill out because I'm actually not going over to the new house today and finish with this book. I'm really enjoying it. It's such an interesting narrative. One thing that I have noticed is that I think, as I mentioned earlier on, this book takes place across quite a few different timelines. We of course have our main character Addie La Rue, who because of this deal that she struck with the devil is immortal, but she is cursed with the fact that no one will ever remember her and like she can't tell anyone her name. So she has lived for over 300 years, and so the book transports you between, generally speaking, timelines in the 1700s, back when she had like just made this deal, and then a timeline in 2014, which is like the present day. And I have to say, although both timelines are interesting, I'm significantly more invested in the present day 2014 timeline because I just feel like there's far more at stake there. Any character that's mentioned in the 1700s timeline, although potentially kind of interesting and adding a bit of context into everything that's happened in Addie's very, very, very long life, you know that they're all dead and gone and really aren't that impactful to the current present day story. Whereas the characters that she's meeting in the present day or in 2014, you feel like there's far more that could happen and that you can really get invested in those characters because they still currently exist and still have the capacity to influence and change what happens in Addie's narrative. So I definitely feel like I'm way more invested and interested in the far more modern storyline. Not to say that I don't like the older one, but I feel like it's just harder to be invested when I know that those characters are, to all intents and purposes, not really that important to the story, if that makes sense. I'd love to know if any of you guys have also read this book, whether you felt similar or whether you actually enjoyed hearing about her older years, because I just feel like I'm personally way more intrigued and invested in what's happening in the here and now rather than in what has already happened. And so that's kind of a one experience that I've had, but on the whole, really enjoying it. And I will say that from this point forth in the vlog, I will be diving into some spoilers because I really want to give a proper review on all of my thoughts on this book, and I can't really do that without giving spoilers. So if you haven't read this book yet and you don't want spoilers, then now would be the time to leave the vlog and come back later. But if you have read it, or if like me, you're someone who doesn't really care about spoilers, then continue watching by all means. So, in the present day storyline, the storyline that I'm far more interested in, Addie has met a guy called Henry. And Henry, as soon as he's introduced to the narrative, you know that he's going to be an important character in this story. And he is the only person in Addie's 300 years of existence who has been able to remember her name and who consistently can remember her even though everyone around him is still forgetting her. So he's introducing Addie to his friends, and then the next time they meet, they've forgotten her, and he thinks that they're just being really rude, but they're not. They just can't remember her, and he can. And it transpires that he also made a deal with the devil, and his deal is different to Addie's in the sense that he just wanted to be enough. He wanted everyone to like him, and so the way that this kind of comes into reality is that everyone he meets, rather than basically being disappointed by him, which had been his life experience to this point, actually views him as like the thing that they want the most. So he basically reflects everyone's best characteristics and is basically this person that everyone loves because he reflects the best parts of everyone. So in Addie and his circumstances, the thing that she wants and the thing that he reflects is simply that he's able to remember her, and therefore that's always enough for Addie. And so they create this really interesting dynamic and partnership where they both understand what the other is going through, but also are going through completely different experiences. And it's just super intriguing. And there's also one point which I think is going to be probably the source of the heartache of this novel, which is that Addie's deal with the devil is essentially granted her immortality until she chooses to relinquish her soul to the devil, whereas Henry's is a deal to last a lifetime, which I can only assume means that he will just live a completely normal life aside from always being loved and wanted by everyone, and then will just die of old age and that will be it, whereas Addie would of course continue living on. So I don't know exactly how that's going to go in terms of the dynamic and the way that they choose to go about their relationship, but I'm starting to make some theories and ideas about how I think the relationship might end and where the devastation might come from in the narrative. But it's very, very interesting to see how it is for Addie now that she's finally, after 300 years, met someone who not only remembers her, but also knows what it is to have made a deal with the devil without really truly understanding what the repercussions of that would be until it's already happened. So I'm really enjoying this book. Like I said, the plan of action is to hopefully finish this book today. And first thing on the agenda, along with reading this book and relaxing, is a little bit of baking, but kind of cheap baking, because yesterday in M&S I found this box of vegan cookies. It's from a brand called Delicious Gourmet Cookie Dough, and you get 6 in a box. This one is obviously their vegan dark chocolate cookie dough, or vegan double chocolate, and basically you just get 6 pieces of cookie dough, you put them in the oven and make cookies. And I thought that sounded really incredible because I love cookies. Now cookies are really easy to make vegan, but this is just such beautiful packaging and I'd never seen this brand before, so I couldn't resist, and I'm very intrigued to see how it tastes. So without further ado, I'm gonna make some cookies and do some reading. Alright, I spent the last few hours reading and I just finished up with The Invisible Life of Addie La Rue. This was such an incredible book. Have to say, I didn't feel like emotional at the end of it. It was, as I think I've said in every single clip about this book, a very haunting and melancholic read, but it wasn't one where I felt devastated, because I felt like throughout the entirety of the novel, although there were some sprinklings of hope, you just got the impression that pain and loss and forgetting was kind of inevitable, so it didn't really feel like a surprise when the book kind of took a downturn. Although I did find Addie's kind of like self-sacrifice for Henry to be surprising. I wasn't necessarily expecting that to happen. It didn't make me feel sad, more as just like an yeah, of course she's gonna do that, because she's had 300 years of life, whereas Henry has only had, you know, like 30 years of life, so she kind of like gave herself up as a martyr in order to allow him to live more of his life. And so I felt like although it was sad, it also made total sense, and therefore just kind of added to the overall haunting atmosphere of the entire novel, where you really see that in the pursuit of total freedom and what she assumed would lead to happiness, Addie has inevitably given up any kind of hope of living a truly happy life. And so rather than trying to sort of continue to pursue that for herself, she tries to do the thing that she thinks is best, which is allowing someone else to truly get that happiness, which I just thought was a really beautiful end to the novel. Not a happy end for Addie, but also kind of hopeful and just really poignant and really in keeping with her entire life. I also have to say that Henry and his narrative were my favourite part of this, because I just thought it was so interesting that he made a completely different deal with the devil, and yet suffered so much by simply just trying to be loved. And I feel like his lack of self-esteem and lack of feeling like enough was really interesting, because then when he was enough and was everything that everyone could ever want, he was just reminded of the person who he was before, which was always not enough, and therefore nothing was ever going to satisfy his need to be wanted and loved by people, because he no longer could believe that it was real. And I just thought that was a really, really like sad reality as well. So really loved this book. I have one more favourite quote to share with you from my last section of reading, which was on page 347. So let's find that. Is helpful. And I felt like this one kind of like really tied up why I enjoyed Henry's storyline so much. And it says, choosing a class became choosing a discipline, and choosing a discipline became choosing a career, and choosing a career became choosing a life. And how was anyone supposed to do that when you only had one? And I just thought that was perfectly summarising for Henry's pursuit of just this perfect life, and never feeling like he knows what direction to go in, because none of them really sort of fulfill what he thinks is the path that he should be going on. But it also really sort of, I think, summarises his and Addie's relationship, as they really juxtapose each other, because whilst Henry has only one life, Addie, in the sense that she is forgotten by people all the time, has 300 years of life, but the opportunity to create a new life and a new self every single day. And I just thought that they're balancing out of one another by being complete polar opposites, but also sharing this experience of wanting something different and making a bargain with the devil is obviously really connecting, and yet really polarizing, because they went on such different paths with their experiences. So I think it's clear to say that I really enjoyed this book. Absolutely 5 stars, and honestly such a wonderful reading experience. It was so beautiful. There were so many quotes that just jumped out at me that really poetically captured an element of the novel, and I just thought that it was really wonderful. I've read a couple of other V E Schwab books before, and I have to say, although they've been fine, I've never been captivated by one of her novels or really felt like I connected with the characters or the storyline, but this one absolutely did that for me. It was just wonderful, and I can 100% see why everyone loved this book so much when it came out last year, because it is just really good. So I'm really glad that I read this book finally. Can now return this one back to Em after lockdown, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing all of my thoughts on it. This will probably be the last reading vlog that I'll start and finish in this area, because now we're going to be moving, so that's super exciting. But yeah, if you've read this book as well, I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts, and I'd love to know what you thought of this book, and if not, I hope maybe this has inspired you to pick it up. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.